I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Woodstock Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to order. This is Monday, June 3rd, 2024. The time is 7:12 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. This is William Rowinski.
Marla Butts.
Mark Parker.
That's Stuart.
Stuart Peasley.
Okay. All right. We have a quorum here and we do not need to appoint any alternates. Action on the minutes of the previous meeting, regular meeting, May 6th, 2024. Does anybody have any comments or changes?
I had a couple. Pending applications item number 6. I just didn't know what, I just needed clarification on what some of the acronyms are or abbreviations, PDEA and XX.
PDEA is Payne Districts Estates Associates, I think, or Association.
Okay.
The XX, I'm not sure what that is.
Maybe that's an amount of money, unknown amount. I don't know. I don't know if it matters, but that was the question I had. Then page.
Oh, I think maybe on that, the XX might have been for signature. I think there was a signature missing.
Okay. We might need to clarify that.
Nothing says we have to approve them tonight. We can always hold them off to the next meeting if we have a question that we need to get clarified by the recording secretary or listening to the recording. Was there any? I'm sorry, I didn't read these ahead of time. I apologize. I'm looking at them right now. So
I had one other, and I can't find it. And it had something to do with a reference to hemlock, and I'm not sure whether that was. Yeah, here it is. Item 8B, which is the first paragraph highlighted after B. It was reported verbally to Dan Malo, sorry, that a lot on hemlock is being cleared. Don't know where hemlock is, which.
That's should be at Lake Bungie. And
it's Hemlock Drive.
Hemlock Drive, okay. But those are the only things I saw. No biggies, but just picked up.
I've got one on top of page 2, under Roman numeral 7, letter C, application 0424-13. That should be request for use permitted as of OF instead of as a right.
Yeah, I saw that before too. Good one. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, same thing with letter D. Use permitted as of right instead of as a right.
well, it's done correct in the motion, so. Yeah.
Then further down on, I believe it's page 3, up, letter F. Motion by M. Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley. Request for use permitted as of right for repair.
Correct.
Yeah.
As a right, yeah.
there any other changes? Would you like to table these or what is your pleasure?
Table or approve with the changes referenced, but I don't know what the XX actually means. You'd have to listen to the recording for that. First selectman will now move them XX to town clerk land records before work begins. My recollection was that there was supposed to be there was a signature missing on one of them. And Mr. Peters said, yeah, that he would sign it. I would table it because that's a critical component for that. And I don't know if they've started the work yet or not. I know they wanted to get started right away.
We should probably also clarify the PDEA.
So I move to hold off to table the minutes from May 6th, 2024 of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency until next month so that we can research the information on application 0324-10.
Correct. Clarification on Roman numeral 6, letter A, 32410.
Correct.
Yep. Yep. Second.
Motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Mark Parker to table the minutes of the May 6th, 2024 Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency pending some clarifications on several items.
Yep.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any nays, any noes, abstain? So the motion carries to table the minutes. Moving on to number 5, citizens' comments. Citizens' comments is inserted here to provide a space earlier in the meeting for items that are brief and things that are not necessarily later on the agenda that might take more extensive discussion. Does anybody have anything that they would like to discuss during citizens' comments? Okay, not hearing anything, we'll move on to pending applications. Pending application A, number 04-24-16, 120 Beaver Dam Road, Jose Macho, request for use permitted as of right for repair of eroded shoreline.
Chair, this is Dan Malo. I have
Yes.
a email from Jose asking to table his request for a few months as he's involved in other projects and won't be able to start anything until the drawdown.
Yep.
He said he would get back to us in September with the additional information requested by the board.
Okay.
I move to
So
table.
Marla-
I'll move to
Okay.
table application 04-24-16, 120 Beaver Dam Road. Jose Macho request for use permitted as of right for repair of eroded shoreline, at least until next month.
Stuart
I don't-
Peasley, a second.
Okay, we have a motion by Marla Butts and seconded by Stuart Peasley to table application 04-24-16, 120 Beaver Dam Road, Jose Macho. Request for use permitted as of right for repair of eroded shoreline. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, just for clarification, I believe in the minutes of last month's meeting, Marla had requested a cross-section of the proposed project. So that and others still needs to be submitted, correct?
Yes, there was also a request for, I think, material estimates. or Estimate materials.
Okay, yep.
Any further discussion?
Just to note
All
that
those
it's
in-
tabled to next month, not to September.
Yeah.
in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Signify no by saying no. Abstain. Okay, the motion carries. Pending application 04-24-18, 72 Lakeview Drive. Kyle Asimovic for Fitzpatrick and Regala drainage upgrade to Lakeview Drive.
Chair, this is Dan Malo. I had sent around an email today indicating that we have an updated site plan for this.
Okay.
And it's an attachment at the bottom of the meeting page. But I have that ready to go on the screen as well.
Okay. Why don't you show that? Because I haven't seen it yet. How about explain what the change was or the update?
This is Carl Atsamovic. Last time Marla had requested some additional information. And with respect to that, we've added the project phasing plan. As we discussed last time, would be to install drainage at this time, and then the second phase would be to pave that section of road. Also, we included a construction sequence to indicate how the construction would proceed, and also a water handling plan during the construction process. And with respect to that, I've also pointed out that the contractor should mark the edges of the two subsurface sewage disposal areas prior to construction, so that there will be no damage during the construction period. And with respect to that, also, I think we added a small detail for installation of small stone check dams as the construction proceeds upstream from the lake area, so that during construction we have some additional protection should a large storm come along. So with that, I would open it up to any questions you might have.
Carl, I'm just going to take a moment to read the sequence of
Sure.
construction. I apologize for not being prepared for the meeting.
No problem.
So Carl, just a question. If you're in the middle of construction and you get hit with a storm, what steps would be taken to keep the
So
site?
that's the reason we're leaving in the existing swale that's been put in recently, and we're leaving that in place, and that we will take that out as we move upstream. But if a storm should come along, that portion is already protected for the time being,
Okay,
and flows would pass into the new pipe section. And certainly, if a storm is predicted, just common sense will tell you that that area has to be reinforced to some extent, so that there's no erodible soil directly between.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, that should work. Any idea how long the anticipated time of construction is? How many days?
I would say if they stay there full time, it should be done in about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Okay,
It's a limited distance, and the main thing would be site restoration once the process is complete.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of weeks at the should be at the most.
Well, the sequence looks good. The only thing, as with any construction site, when you're dealing with stormwater drainage, when you got a storm that comes in, there's no guarantee what you're gonna have happen.
That's
So,
correct. I've encountered that many times, especially with my work on dams.
yeah.
But,
So then you just kind of have to deal with it after it's come, because sometimes they can be acts of God, you really just, it exceeds what your controls are to begin with, and you just have to figure out.
It depends a little bit on the severity of the storm as well. And
Mhm.
that would depend on the prediction of about how many inches of rain that we might anticipate receiving. And if it's a large amount, then obviously we would have to take some extraordinary steps.
Yeah, so what's their timing on this that they plan to initiate? If they get approval, say approval tonight, what would be their time to start construction?
Well, it would be good to get construction started as soon as possible because it
Yeah.
doesn't, the weather-wise, we're going to be entering a time of lower precipitation, lower
Yeah.
groundwater levels. So
Yeah.
I would say this would be a good time to get started.
Have they engaged their contractor yet? They know,
I'm not certain that they've agreed on this yet, but they have probably the contractor who installed the stone swale is certainly capable of
Hi,
construction.
this is Robert Billings. I'm the roads chair for Bungie Lake, and I've contacted Pinecroft to handle this job.
Mhm. And have they indicated that they can come in and do it continuously till it's completed?
He has not indicated that yet. He was waiting for it to get approved and to look at the plans and meet with the engineer.
Okay.
But I would assume he has the capabilities and manpower to do it straight until it's complete.
Yep.
Yeah, the other, maybe it's a technicality, but nobody signed as the grantee for the Lake Bungee District. I don't know if we legally need that signature on there.
Whose signature would that have been? Who is the president of the association?
Is Ronnie Abalik?
Okay, so he should be signing that.
She, but yes.
She, yeah. She should be signing that. And we're still, groundwaters are starting to drop, but we haven't seen them drop yet, and we still haven't seen the rains slow up, it seems. So, I'm thinking we might want to table this till next month, till July, and that way we'll be clearly be in the low flow period. And I would think that the work should occur during low flow. Before, I would say, should be completed before September 15th. So we're getting into hurricane season then, and we may or may not, that's always a gamble, you never know. What line was that on that you were looking at, Bill?
It's on a screen.
Oh, yeah, you definitely have to have that in place. So why don't we table this till next month to give her a chance to get that all signed up, but I don't see any problem with the application at this juncture. I don't know how anybody else feels. The sequence of construction is the way you would do it. The adding the stone check dams, that's also a good idea. No matter what you do in a case like this, you could stand a chance of getting wiped out by a big storm, but that's a chance you take. That's why you want to continue the work without delay. Do you need a motion to that effect?
I have one more question before we do
Okay.
that. On the temporary work easement, maybe Carl could speak to that. At the bottom of that first page, well, I printed out the first page, there's section 2, the term. And there's a date there of June 30th, 2023. I'm not sure that I understand that paragraph and how that date works into there. Okay, Yeah,
Which page, Bill?
right there where it says item 2. Just go up one more page. Item 2 there.
You're on page 6 of the document?
That's what Dan has up.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find. Temporary work easement.
Says the date grantor ceases to be the fee owner of the premises or June 30th, 2023.
Oh, so that's a year old already.
Are they, I believe Karen and Mark Fitzpatrick are still the owners of the property.
Yeah, but they can just initial this. They can initial the original, change the date and initial it, and that'll be fine too. Is that the way all of them are?
That's the other one that I saw.
So it says, I'm on page 1 of 5. This is, in witness thereof, grantor, grantee have executed this easement as of the date and the year written above. No, it doesn't say that there's a limitation there, so it's in the main one that has to be changed. Because otherwise the easement doesn't hold. Temporary work easement. Is that the way you would read that, Carl? On item 2?
Well, it's
term?
kind of open because when you read the wording just before the small Roman numerals, it says upon the later of, and then
Yeah.
you have 3 choices. And the first one is the date of the completion of the work on the premises in
Yeah,
accordance with section 7. So, you
That's
could
good.
construe that to be one of the 3 choices, but it would be nice and clean if if the dates were changed. I would agree with that, but it
Yeah.
does leave it open to interpretation there.
yeah. Well, that's more a legal thing, I think, between the property owners and the Lake Association as opposed to the Wetlands Commission. This is a contract between them and them, not us and them.
Correct.
So that's not, I don't think that's a fatal flaw. And 7 is restoration of the premises. So item 7 is. And everybody still owns the property that gave the easements. So those haven't changed.
That is correct.
Okay. So that's not a problem. I don't. Although the association should sign the. Let's see, what page is it on? It's page 5 of 5, temporary work easement. No, that's signed. 5 of 5, or 3 of 5. Okay, 5 of 5. That should be signed by the Lake Bungay Flood Control. Whoever it is that's supposed to sign that should be signed. But it's the Lake Bungay Flood Control and Erosion and Tax District that's doing the work, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so they've already signed the application form that said that this was their application. Did she sign the application form?
I signed it above
Okay,
here.
Rhodes Chair. Yeah, you signed it as Rhodes Chair. So she still should sign that document, I think.
She being the president
Yeah, the page 5 of 5, the easement.
at the bottom. Okay, I
Yeah,
can get it.
yeah, yeah,
I can get over to her right away. So
yeah. So Bill, I'd be willing to approve this on the condition that page 5 of 5 of the temporary easement is signed off by the appropriate official. It's 3 of 5, 5, yeah, by the appropriate official for the Lake Bungay Flood Control and Erosion and Tax District. I don't think we should have to hold up the permit for another month if that's the only thing that's missing, so.
Could she stop by the town hall and sign it at any time? I know she works. She has a doctor's office down over there. Could she just stop and sign it at any time?
That would be up to Dan, because Dan's the one in the office.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering whether or not you want me to make a motion to that effect. You know, that a conditional approval that conditions it upon the signing of the temporary work easement by the Lake Bungay Flood Control and Erosion and Tax District. How does anybody else feel about that?
Yeah, and I would also add that if they are gonna be signing that page 5 of 5, that the year be made to 2024. See right below that, on this date, on this
Yeah,
blank,
they'd have to change that. Yeah.
2024, not 2023.
So she could cross off and then put the correct date
Correct. Yep.
and put whatever the date is that they're bringing it in for the notary public. They'd have to change that for the notary public.
Correct.
Yeah. Stu, how do you feel about that?
It sounds good. I'm remiss in seeing the paperwork on this. I didn't look at it, so I can't really comment. I should probably abstain. But
Well,
it sounds reasonable.
you and I are in the same place,
Yeah.
but I'm just
I missed
reviewing it
it.
as we go. All right.
It sounds reasonable to make the clarifications.
Okay. Let me get back to you.
This is Dan. It might be a challenge to change that section 2 of the term. It is open-ended to still be valid.
We're not looking at that. I wasn't looking at
okay.
that, Dan. We're gonna let that go because it looks like that's a contractual agreement between the district, the taxing district and the property owners. I'm not worried about that, but
Is this a subsequent change in the language of the easement? And on that page 5 of 5?
no, that's just for the notary public. The notary public's gonna sign that and they're putting in the date, and the date would be wrong because it's not 2023. The date would have to be July, June something,
Okay.
2004.
I
That's
see
what
it.
the notary public. So if she's gonna sign it, and it's gonna be witnessed, and the notary public, she's gonna need to change the 2023 to 2024. See what I'm saying?
Yep, I see it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'll move to approve application 04-24-18, 72 Lakeview Drive, by Carl Akamovic for Fitzpatrick and Rogala for drainage upgrade to Lakeview Drive, to be conditioned that no work may begin until such time as the temporary work easement is properly signed and notarized by the Lake Bungay Flood Control and Erosion and Tax District. And that such work shall be performed during low flow season, not to exceed past September 15th.
Second.
We have a motion by Marla Butts to approve with conditions. Application 04-24-18. Carl Asamovic for Fitzpatrick and Rogala drainage upgrade to Lakeview Drive in the Lake Bungay Tax District. I'm not going to attempt to repeat all the details, and hopefully the recording is sufficient for that. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Abstain? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you,
So-
everyone.
So just so Dan understands, Dan, it is approved, but they can't initiate the work until you receive that, that signed document. Page 5 of 5, that's in
Okay.
the temporary work easement. So it is authorized, but they're not allowed to initiate that work, and that they have to complete the work by September 15th.
Can it be a handwritten edit to the date? Or should this be typed?
No, that they'll need to make sure that they do that. I didn't put it in the motion that was approved, but the notary's gonna catch that, because she's
Right,
not
the-
gonna sign off on the wrong year.
Right, the notary should type in the correct date and year.
Okay. Any other comments? We will move on. Okay. On to new applications. Application 05-24-19, Camp Road, Chris Lemery, Health Forest Products, Inc., for Annette Martell for timber harvest.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Lemery, forest technician with Hull Forest Products. Here today to present to you a timber harvest operation set up for Annette Martell, located off Camp Road in Woodstock. The timber harvest prescription is a selective harvest targeting the unhealthy, diseased, declining, and proliform species, as well as trying to convert a piece of her land to a managed sugar bush in order to expand their syrup operation. All den and nest trees will also be retained for wildlife considerations, but there will be no harvesting in wetlands, but there will be harvesting in the upland review area. Pre-existing roads will be used for the operation, and no new roads will be created for this harvest other than skid trails. There will be no stream crossings, but there will be a single wetland crossing involved with the harvest. On the notification, you'll see that I have it as a watercourse crossing, not a wetland crossing. I had them switched. It should say wetland crossing and not a stream crossing. If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me that now.
Okay, all right, yeah, that was confusing me, because in the narrative on page 2, you say that it'll be a watercourse crossing, but then on the legend on your map,
has-
it says that it's a wetland crossing, so what do you,
Yep, that was my bad.
so
It
you,
just needs to be switched. It needs, instead of it being a watercourse, it should have said wetland and not a watercourse crossing.
okay. Yeah, got it.
So how will you cross those wetlands? Will you be using a corduroy road, or because you're in a wet time of the year?
It'll be most likely corduroy or timber bridge mats. I'm thinking it's probably just going to be corduroy. It's such a small crossing,
Yeah.
that corduroy will work just fine.
Mhm. I don't see a problem with this, just because there's some cutting in the upland review area is not, because you're not clear cutting, you're selective cutting.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I move to approve application. If there's no further discussion, does anybody else have any comments? Otherwise, I'll move. Stu, do you have any comments? I was wondering.
No, it looks fine to me.
I'm gonna move to approve application 04-24-19 Camp Road by Chris Lemery. Did I pronounce that right? Lemery?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
it- Yeah, Lemery.
Lemery, yep.
Yep. For Hull Forest Products Inc. for Annette Martell for timber harvest as a use permitted as of right under agriculture.
Second,
We have a motion made by Marla Butt, seconded by Mark Parker to approve application 04-24-19 Camp Road, Chris Lemery, Health Forest Products, Inc., for Annette Martell for timber harvest as a use permitted as of right for agriculture. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed signify by saying nay. Abstain. The motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Moving on to application 05-24-20, 56 Empire Lane, Woodstock Building Associates for Barbara Emmanuel, lawn, stairs, and floating dock.
Do you have any pictures of this site as it stands now?
The the site pictures that Doug Porter brought to us for discussion a meeting or two ago.
Okay, let me go back.
That was like 3 or 4 months ago.
I will say on page one, just for clarification, page one, number 4, letter D, purpose of the proposed activity. It says install stairs, wood to watercourse edge, and install floating dock, not activity in watercourse. Wouldn't installing the floating dock be an activity in the watercourse?
Is it removable? Is it a floating dock that they take out every year, or is it stationary? Is it anchored so that they can't be removed?
It's removable.
Okay, so it's a temporary structure that goes in and comes out. So,
Every year, every season.
Yes, it'll be taken out. This is Doug Porter. It'll be taken out before, the winter ice storms.
Do you have any idea how they plan to anchor it?
It's just going to be driven stakes or re-rod or slightly heavier than a re-rod at the bank shore.
Okay. Don't really have any significant boat traffic to affect this in a negative way. So it should be fairly stable. And the water level there doesn't change very much typically either.
yeah, and the floating dock would be it's very similar to if somebody had a boat moored in front of their house. Typically those aren't problems because they're not permanent.
Right.
How will you protect while you're installing the fine lawn, how will you protect the lake during the time of the grass? Because we're just about outside of the grass growing season now. So unless they use unless they sprinkle it, what will they use to protect the water body from siltation during the time that the grass is growing? Are they going to use any kind of erosion control, any wattles or anything like that?
Yes, when Dan and I met out at the site, we discussed using a row of wattles along above the edge where you can see the grade is, the contour drops. We'll keep it on the top side of that. And
Yep.
it's a very rocky shoreline too. So that'll also keep any siltation from getting into the water area.
Yep. Yeah, I think I remember this now. I don't have a problem with this.
Original idea that you proposed was cutting out the bank a little bit to make it.
Yeah, originally we were looking more for a beachfront, and we based on your suggestions, we backed off on that. And then she really just basically came down. She really is looking for that lawn area, play area for the children and grandchildren to be.
And then
My
Go ahead.
apologies. My apologies for, I'm I feel a little silly asking this, but I've never heard of a fine lawn. What is a fine lawn as opposed to any other lawn?
Well, you can have just a reseeding the area and just let it go to a hay field just to, restabilize. the area, and then a fine lawn would be something you'd have a lawnmower you'd be able to use.
Oh, okay, all right. But at any rate, it will be a lawn with a good root structure so that it will hold the topsoil together. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't see why this can't be approved tonight. Um, I move to approve application 05-24-20 for 56 Empire Lane by Woodstock Building Associates for Barbara Emanuel for the construction of a lawn, stairs, and floating dock that is a removable floating dock.
I second a motion. Stuart Peasley.
Bill Rowinski. So we have a full application, work in wetlands, I believe,
Mhm.
under, you were proving that as,
A permit. Because of the floating.
okay. All right, we have a motion by Marla Butts and seconded by Stuart Peasley, I believe, to approve application 05-24-20, 56 Empire Lane, Woodstock Building Associates for Barbara Emanuel, lawn, stairs, and floating dock. Any further discussions?
Yeah, so Marla, if they're putting in a lawn and installing stairs within the upland review area, is that, I don't know, I'm just trying to get
Well,
my
it
head.
doesn't, the thing is that if you do it as a wetlands agent approval, then it potentially could come back to the commission. So it doesn't need to come back to the commission. So since it came in as a permit application, the price is the same as a wetlands agent approval. So let's just process it as a wetlands agent approval. I mean, as
Okay.
a individual permit. And just include the dock in there because that actually goes out into the water.
Right,
Technically, that probably could have come in under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home.
Yep.
But they came in as an application because of the stairs and stuff, so let's just approve it as a individual permit. And then it's done.
okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Mhm.
Statutorily, we have we are able to do that.
I'm sorry, what?
Statutorily, by the state statute, we are able to do that, according
Yeah.
to Janet Brooks.
Yep.
So is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstain. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Doug.
Doug.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Application 05-24-21, County Road, Town of Woodstock, Gravelly Brook Culvert Repair.
I'm getting the same error message.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I'm not
You
getting
have
that.
to open it from a different link. I think down at the bottom of the page, it's the
Okay.
page will open up if the link
Yeah.
in the body of the agenda doesn't open it.
It is quite a large file size. I had to do a bit of decompression on it. And I think that might be the reason why that link isn't working, but the link at the bottom of the page regarding this application is ready to go.
Yep, got it.
So just so the commission knows, I actually went out to the site and met with Jason, the new Public Works Director, and contractor to talk about how they were going to approach this. If you recall, there was originally a permit a couple of years back for the cross culvert. And at this juncture, they want to basically make the culvert on Gravelly Brook the same as that that's on Route 169 that DOT put in. DOT gets a permit from the state of Connecticut.
So the culvert
And-
that runs underneath County Road.
Yeah, so that the county road culvert will be the same as that which is under Route 169, which was replaced last year, I think, or the year before that. Is there somebody here to
If you can,
Yep.
yeah, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
This is Janet Blanchett from J&D Civil Engineers, and I'm representing the Town of Woodstock Public Works Department on this project. So basically everything, if perhaps we can just go down to the plan set, and I can discuss some of the materials application. Thank you, Dan. So this is the culvert on County Road just east of Route 169, and about 100 feet upstream of it was where in 2017 the state replaced the culvert with a 10-foot wide and a 9-foot tall precast concrete box culvert. And so as you can imagine, the state did significant hydraulic analysis and studies of what would be the appropriate size. And so I think that the town is able to take advantage of all of that engineering that the state did, and essentially replace their bridge with the structure very similar to what the state did. Originally, when the town came to the Wetlands Commission, and I think it was about in 2019, they had hoped to just do repair work on the top of the culvert so that they could widen the road and replace guide rail. But that proved to be fairly costly, and this structure is more than 50 years old. It was built in 1970. So instead of investing a lot of money in a very old structure, it was felt to be prudent to replace it just as the state did. And if you wouldn't mind advancing it to the next sheet, that will show the proposed work. So this is the site development plan. You can see the new 10-foot wide by 9-foot tall box culvert, and pretty much in the center of the sheet with the wing walls. Another thing you can see is the temporary bypass of Gravelly Brook, which is on the east side of the culvert, because that is the low side. I believe when they met with you, Marla, they were considering doing the west side, but
Yes, they were. Yeah.
the excavation would have been so much more.
Mhm.
And the state used a 24-inch bypass pipe, but the town has a lot of 36-inch pipe on hand, and that will actually provide twice the capacity for bypassing the brook during the construction period. So that's what's currently proposed. So the biggest impact to the wetland, besides there will obviously be a short-term impact to the brook, but in the longer term, there's wetlands, particularly on the south of County Road, and just the widening of the road itself. And in order to create a stable 2-to-1 slope, the toe of the slope just, it does impact the wetlands there. And those 2-to-1 slopes are proposed to be covered with erosion control blanket to, pretty much immediately stabilize it. And then once it's stable, the road will be much safer. If we want to perhaps move on along the plan sheets, I can show you the cross sections and profiles.
So that's all gonna be in that little floodplain pasture. I think it's owned by Peter Bennett Jr. And right now there's cows in there and everything, so even the bypass, that's gonna be in that lower floodplain, wetland area, right?
Yes, I believe it's the Foskett's that own that. I mean, that's who the drainage easement was obtained from, unless the property was recently sold on the
Yeah,
south side.
Yeah, on the southwest side is Foskett's, but I think on the southeast side, I'm pretty sure I'm sorry. The southeast side of County Road is the Bennett's, and the northwest side of County Road is the Foskett piece.
Um, well, I guess I can double check that, but I believe the town just got a drainage easement from Foskett, so
Okay.
for this construction.
Yeah.
If the next, I mean, the next sheet basically shows the road profile coming off of Route 169 on the left, and you can see there'll be a little bit of fill over the culvert. This new culvert will have more capacity than the existing one. The erosion and sediment control with the construction sequences shown on this sheet, and we know that we're just submitting this for the first time to the commission this month, and we aren't expecting any decisions, so that you should have ample time and staff to review all the documents that are presented in our application. If you wouldn't mind moving on to the next sheet. This sheet primarily shows the existing conditions, the cross section of the arch. You can see that on the right-hand side. And then on the lower left is the typical cross section of the reconstructed road, showing the 4-foot wide travel way with 1-foot Cape Cod berm on each side, and then a guide rail in a 4-foot shoulder, then with 2-to-1 slopes down to meet the existing ground. And the next sheets really show more detail on the actual culvert that's proposed. So right in the middle there, you can see the geometry of the culvert. The wing walls were minimized, but this is a relatively large structure, so the wing walls are relatively long. The culvert itself is definitely going to be precast. The town is working with their contractor to see what's more cost effective for the wing walls, whether they're going to be precast or cast in place. That would probably come down to the cost. I mean, the size, the dimensions, the angles, none of that would be affected whether they're cast in place or precast. Lower on this sheet, this shows the cross section through the culvert, and the bottom is proposed to be filled with native stream substrate, and this is for fisheries. The inlet end will have about 2 feet of fill, and the outlet end will have about 1 foot of fill, and there's actually a low flow channel that's created inside that, which can be shown in more detail on the next sheet. And this again, like I said, is for fisheries. It meets their requirements with not having any, abrupt lips or drops, with having the stream water be deep enough because it's centered in the culvert. It's not spread out over a long, flat concrete slab. And that on the next sheet, you can see exactly how that will be formed right inside the box culvert. So what I mean, Jason, I believe, is on this meeting as well, so he can, make any comments to add to this presentation. But it's my understanding if we're able to address all the commission's questions by next month and the project gets approved, they'll basically immediately order the precaster to construct the box culvert sections, and then they'll move towards closing the road and getting set up for delivery of the precast structure so that it can be accomplished in the late summer. That's the goal.
Janet, where would I find the sequence of construction?
That is on sheet 4. It's on the right-hand side in those notes.
sheet 4. Okay, right-hand side,
Yeah, that,
4. Oh, it's 3. Hold on, one page. There we go. There we go. Got it. Thank you. Yeah, because I want to take a look at that. Just take a quick look at that.
sure.
One of the things that I asked when we were in the field, because the DOT drainage study was like, inches thick. And I said, we don't need that in our files as long as Public Works has the information in their files. But I did ask for if there was a summary of the hydraulics of what that report said, what the passage flows were for a 100-year storm, whatever that.
Sure,
Is
sure.
that in this?
I can, yes, I can provide that for you over the next week or so. I have a full copy. I can extract out the relevant pages. I know that it was designed to pass not only the 100, but the 500-year storm with a foot of freeboard. And they did use, somewhere it mentioned that they used increased rainfall amounts because everybody knows the precipitation seems to be increasing these days.
Mm.
It's about a 1 square mile watershed. So there's some relevant facts I can extract out so you won't need the
Yeah, just so
hundreds
we
of
have it.
pages.
Yeah, so we have a summary of how it functions,
Sure.
how it's going to
Yeah.
function.
I will make a note of that.
Because if we ever have work downstream, then that'll at least be initiation of some kind of hydraulic summary as to what's coming to what's downstream. That it's
Yeah,
just
right.
useful.
It's definitely, yeah, it's very useful to know what the 50, the 100-year flows are if you're working downstream.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's going to take a little while. Dan, I noticed that the photograph, the plan sheets look like they're photographed. They look like they were folded and then photographed after they were folded. Is it possible we could get PDFs of these that are, because Janet, you usually can produce PDFs that he
Right.
could provide to us, not the necessarily signed and sealed ones, but at least, PDFs that we can peruse a little more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can provide that.
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah, we're working with a new plotter in the clerk's office. So there's kind of some trial and error how to get these to present properly as PDFs. But I would appreciate a PDF if you could. Thank you, Janet.
Sure.
Yeah, and so Dan, if you could just make sure those PDFs get forwarded to the commission commission members as soon as you get them, so we can take our time with them.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Now I move that to accept application 05-24-21 County Road by the town of Woodstock to do culvert replacement on Gravelly Brook to be considered at next month's meeting with a request that a hydraulic summary and PDFs be provided to the commission in advance of that meeting.
Second
I would
the
amend
motion.
that to also say under Gravelly Brook under County Road.
Correct. I amend it to say Gravelly Brook under County Road.
And I'll second the amendment and the motion.
I thought I did say County Road, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Have a motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley, I believe was, to accept application 05-24-21 County Road, Town of Woodstock for Gravelly Brook under County Road with several requests for additional information.
Hydraulic summary and PDFs of the plans.
Okay. Does anybody have any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thanks.
Abstains? The motion passes.
Thanks, Janet.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Janet.
Sure.
Okay, we'll move on to the next application 05-24-22, 286 Route 169. Matt LaPrise for Castle Rock Farm LLC Timber Harvest. Is there anybody here tonight representing?
Yes, good evening. This is Chris Cassidy, certified forester with the state of Connecticut. Here tonight to discuss the selective timber harvest proposed on the Castle Rock Farm on 169 across from the fairgrounds. Matthew LaPrise and I are going to be continuing the uneven age management of this hardwood mixed forest up there. All the details are before you. You know, there's existing network of skid roads. We have a few stream crossings to navigate on this parcel. But otherwise it's very operable ground and a downhill skid and should work out well. One of our bigger concerns with this is the traffic around the fair, and that you know, might pose a little bit of an issue with when we harvest this. So we are planning on starting after the fair this year. So we have the map before you. These are existing landings, existing, you know, roads through the forest, and the crossings have been used before. So I guess we could just start the discussion now if you have any questions.
This looks all straightforward to me. You say the crossings you're going to use either portable timber bridges or corduroy road. And it looks like the watershed is not that big for at least both of, actually, you've got 3 crossings. You got
Well, the ones
existing
that you
culvert
see down
crossings.
by the field there,
Mhm.
indicated as white stars, are existing culverted agricultural crossing that they use to access that field in the back. So we shouldn't have to do anything to those. They've got good culverts underneath them and a nice base above them. The one, you know, in the west, up in the forest there, that one there is a very intermittent drainage, holds up some water behind it, but there's a good road through there. It's got a nice base. We are going to put a bridge on that one and use corduroy for the approaches.
Okay.
The one down below to the north, again, it's a very, you know, defined channel. It'll hold the bridge nicely, and we'll corduroy the approaches as necessary.
Okay. It's pretty standard. And you're going to start after the fair.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the traffic would just be a nightmare if we were working during that time. If we do happen to start before that, you know, obviously we'll yield right away to the fair traffic, but the plan is to start after.
Okay. I don't see a problem with this timber harvest request. So I'm going to move to approve application 05-24-22, 286 Route 169 by Matt LaPrise for Castle Rock Farm LLC, a timber harvest as a use permitted as of right under agriculture.
Repeatedly, I'll second the motion.
And we have a motion made by Marla Butts to approve and seconded by Stuart Peasley to approve application 04-24-22, 286 Route 169, Matt LaPrise for Castle Rock Farm LLC Timber Harvest as a use permitted as of right under agriculture. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, good
You
night.
too.
Next application. Application 04-24-23, 176 New Sweden Road, Don D. Costanzo, new single-family home.
Yes. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Anybody, do you have some, anybody have any comments, descriptions, or otherwise?
What's the regulated activity that we're talking about here?
What's the question?
What's the regulated activity that we're talking about? So this is a wetland, so the setback,
Yeah, it's the
Is-
upland area
yeah, the upland area is 100
feet. You
100
can see the
feet.
line that we're just crossing through the garage.
Okay, I see it. Got it. And the septic.
Yep,
Do you have your approvals from NDDH yet? Northeast District Department of Health?
yes.
Are those included in the application? The approval?
I don't know.
Dan, do you have that in the files? NDDH's approval for the septic design?
Don, we had talked about that you previously had an approval, and was there an updated?
We're
approval?
going for, all the NDDH wants is some new perks that we're doing Thursday. But as far as they said, it's good to go.
So they
Do
should
we-
have given you something in writing on that. Did they give you anything in writing on this drawing?
Tina, did we get anything from them?
And Tina, you're on mute.
Hello. We do have the perk tests and the approval from this plan that I can provide to you.
So that's the design. It's a design approval, correct? And it cites this plan?
Yes,
Okay,
I have that.
so let's see, what's the limit of disturbance? Provide continuous silence. So is your silt fencing your limit of disturbance?
Yes.
Okay. So this can be processed as a wetlands agent approval as soon as Dan gets the Northeast District Department of Health's approval for this plan. Once he has a copy in the file, I don't have any problem with him approving it. I don't think it requires a motion by us to do that, but we can do that. It's within his authority to do that. How does anybody else feel about that? Just let Dan approve it as a wetlands agent approval, and once he gets the NDDH design approval letter for this drawing.
Seems reasonable to me.
Stu, you have
Oh, do you have any
opinions?
comment?
No problem with it.
So then I'll move that application 05-24-23 176 New Sweden Road for Don Disconstanzo for a new single-family home be processed as a wetlands agent approval by the wetlands agent Dan Malo as soon as he receives the Northeast District Department of Health's letter approving the design as identified in the submitted plan.
Second the motion, Stuart Peasley.
All right, we have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley to approve
To process,
to process application 05-24-23 176 to Sweden Road, Don DiCostanzo, new single-family home to process as a wetlands approval, wetlands agent approval, pending the receipt of the documentation from the Northeast District Department of Health. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye-bye.
seeing you all.
Yeah.
Tina.
Bye.
Okay, next application. 04-24 260 Bungie Hill Road, Chandler Paquette for Frank and Anne Marie Sussingham underground propane storage tank. Is there anybody here online representing either party?
Chandler told me today he was not going to be able to make it. But he did supply a narrative that is shared in this application packet. So
Couple of questions.
yeah, actually, where this came from in the first place, when I was away at Casio, Bungie zoning and building, Jose Macho had sent a picture and question about this activity going on in the regulated area. On Monday, my first day back, I found that the building official and the health department had approved, and a propane tank had gone into the ground, and everyone thought it had its approvals through building and zoning as part of the tear down and reconstruction permit. I was told the building department is used to these tanks going in the ground with new constructions, and it was an oversight, and that they thought this had all the requisite approvals. As soon as I found that, I engaged with the contractor and Chandler Paquette, who is the general contractor for the Sussinghams, to get their permits in order. This is an activity in the Upland Review area. It's very close to Bungie Hill Road. It works with, there's a shed there, or a garage, that establishes a building line. So it's a non-conforming type of situation for zoning, but within the setback that was established with this garage. I'll go through this application here. They were looking at this sort of as a incidental to the maintenance and enjoyment of the home. And the narrative provided by Chandler Paquette is on the screen, kind of reiterating the communication error. They had applied for and received B100A from the health department. They also received a mechanical permit from the building office at the town hall. The contractor, Hometown, was under the impression that everything, all the permitting was set, and the tank was installed, inspected by the building official, and backfilled with sand per the building code. It was after the fact that they were notified that wetlands and zoning permits should have also been applied for. Chandler believes there was a lack of communication that caused this issue because the building office approved the application. Hometown thought they had done their due diligence as the building officer was involved in the process, completed the inspection, and approved them to backfill the tank. The final paragraph discusses the meeting that the contractor, Chandler Paquette, Mr. John Guskowski, who's consults with the town with the firm Tyke, and myself to approach permitting for this issue. And he's provided some of the health department information and markup of a drawing, and offers his regrets for this mix-up, and believes this is a learning curve for all parties to avoid such issues in the future, and he can be reached for comment or contact if anything further is required.
Dan, is the site stable?
It is, I drove by it today, and it is like a construction site. There's dirt I couldn't get into have a really good look at things because there were contractor trucks lining the road in that location. It was kind of a traffic nuisance over there right now too. I want to get a closer look and have photographs. But let me adjust this plan on the screen. The issue is it's entirely in the upland review area. And Yep.
Was the home completely rebuilt?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so is the home finished? Is it a residential home now?
there's no
Well,
CO for it.
Okay, so
nice,
it won't qualify for maintenance and enjoyment of residential home. If
Okay.
the home doesn't have a CO, so it should be processed as a wetlands agent approval.
So to that note, I initially had the contractor supply a short form application,
That's fine.
and I did receive a payment.
Yep.
So we can process this as a an agent approval. That makes sense. There's no CO on the home, so it can't really be maintenance and enjoyment of the home.
Right. And since it's an increase of the footprint of the work that was already approved, it would have to have come in anyways. If it had been covered in the original application, it would have been covered then, but it's an increase in the scope of work, an increase of the footprint, so it has to come in as a separate. So I think you can process this as a wetlands agent approval without any further delay.
Okay.
This is Bill Rowinski. I have a question now. When they put that tank in, was the water still low? Do you know?
It was installed, I had no part or observations
Okay.
during the process. I was alerted to it after it was already backfilled.
Because here's my concern is I think that tank, that's at least part of the year is going to be sitting in water. I think the shore elevation is like 596.5. And the contour, it kind of goes just up above the tank is 600. So it seems to me that tank would probably be in the water table at least part of the year. And I don't know if that is something that's done, whether that's a steel tank or a fiberglass coated tank or what the story is. But I don't know if they would typically approve a tank to be in a water table like that. If anybody has any wisdom or comments about that.
No, but if they've given their approval, they've given their approval, whether or not they made a mistake or not. The nice thing about propane is if it's released, it doesn't really pollute the way oil would pollute. It just gases off.
Hmm.
So it's probably not going to be a danger to the water course. But a lot of times when they're released, I understand that they can actually freeze. They can freeze the ground around them. But like
Mhm.
I take that back. I take that back. If it's in the winter time and the ground is frozen and there's a leak, sometimes you can end up with other concerns, but I don't know anything about the integrity of the tanks. But if the health department approved it, that we really can't supplant our jurisdiction for theirs. Or the building official either, because he should have, if that was a problem, he should have picked that up.
Something that would be good to know for the future.
Yeah, would be. Dan, you might
Other than that,
inquire to the building inspector about that.
About the water table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the elevation of the tank. But I still think that it can be processed as a wetlands agent approval, given the information we have, since it's already in the ground. And it's
I'm
been
okay with-
approved by the health department, so.
Yeah, this is Bill. I'm okay with that.
So I move that application 05-24-24, 260 Bungay Hill Road, Chandler Paquette for Frank and Anne Marie Sussingham to maintain an underground propane tank, be processed as a wetlands agent approval. By Dan Malo.
Stuart Peasley, I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley for application 05-24-24, 260 Bungie Hill Road, Chandler Paquette for Frank and Anne Marie Sussingham for underground propane tank to be processed as a wetlands agent approval. Is there any further discussion? Favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Now on to administrative business. Dan, you can take over from here.
Yep. Okay. So, no correspondence. I do have what's legally required that we received that Marla had requested, waiting in the office.
Thank you.
Let's see, on to the agent report. I noticed here that we don't have I didn't include financials on this agenda here. And I think it was an oversight on maybe the last couple agendas. But I should be presenting our financials to the commission on a monthly basis, and I'll make sure that we get on track for the next meeting. I shared a short agent report with members this afternoon by email, and I'll run through some of it. I was away for Casio for a whole week out of the office, and then last week Tracy was on vacation, so there was a bit of catch up. For future vacation, FYI, I will be on vacation from July 4th through the 15th, maximizing that Thursday, 4th of July holiday. I'll only be missing 5 office days in that stretch, though. I wanted to make note that we are up to, I think we were on permit number 052424, so I made an error in this. 24 applications altogether in 2024 have been submitted to the commission. Last year, in the calendar year, we had 28 total. So we're ready to shoot past that number, possibly dramatically this year. In 2022 and 2021, we did have permit application totals in the 40s. So this is kind of getting back into that COVID era rush of projects. Prior to 2020, we would only maybe average, I've charted this out, less than 30 permit applications a year. I don't know what to make of it, except that we just have decent share of business on our agendas. The projects aren't necessarily more complex. Timber harvests, uses permitted as a right. And wetlands agent approval type applications. But there has been an increase while I was away for Casio in wetlands and zoning complaints to investigate. We had mentioned briefly at the start of the meeting Hemlock Drive. I did send an inquiry about they've cleared the lot entirely. Jose Macho had sent me photographs, very visible skunk cabbage. I went to visit the site on 5/26. I'm sorry, 5/6. right, I believe the day after our meeting, and confirmed hydrophytic vegetation. And then I issued an inquiry. The equipment that's on site hasn't moved at all since. But there was an installation of a silt fence around the area of hydrophytic vegetation, which was at the basically the backyard setback of the property. I don't know if they'd be putting a house there, but any application should include, would probably fall within our regulated area. I haven't received any building permit applications, but if I do get a site plan, I won't approve it without a wetlands delineation, because I think also a wetlands permit, it might be warranted, even in just a wetlands agent approval. If a zoning permit does materialize, I will hold off my zoning review for a site plan that includes a delineation by a qualified soil scientist. I reached out to Jose. He said nobody's contacted him. The property owner hasn't contacted me. It's an out-of-state property owner. But the only new development on that site has been the installation of a silt fence. I think another letter is in order. I think they must have gotten my first message if there was an addition of a silt fence. But I'd like some communication so they know what types of permits and they should be seeking, and what would be needed to develop that lot. What permissions they should have had prior to clearing. If anybody has any questions about that one, I could move on to the next. Okay. 260 Bungie Hill, we just spoke to that in reference to the propane tank underground. There was assumptions built into buildings review of things. When somebody is building a new house, they typically instruct them to ask for all that you really want in the plan, even if you're not building it right away, to just get your approvals for things. Especially something underground zoning, it is a structure. Zoning regs require all structures above ground or below ground to meet a setback. So there's things in the construction process that you might want to have planned out from the beginning. So they instruct people to ask for propane if you want it. And they were looking at this application as a new single family home, and thought it was approved in the context of that, our approvals. But now we've made steps to right that process and have better communication. We had, moving on to the next item, we had the Cambereries in with us last year about a lot on Bighorn Lane, lot OC43. The building official thought the neighbor was to the north was doing some clearing, but it was actually activity associated with the permit we issued. It is such a tiny space. You could assume it would be somebody else's yard. I don't know how the Cambereries or whoever plans to build there is gonna wedge something in. But there was a variance associated with the Cambereries that reduced their side yard and front yard, and I think a rear yard setback requirements. So absent of lot coverage minimums or maximums for zoning, they can put a house that size on a postage stamp. that the permit that was issued through the commission was March roundabout last year, permit 032303. I've received a lot of inquiries, both the neighbor to the north and to the south are wondering who's flagging their property. They thought I was out there flagging their property. It wasn't me. I think this is a situation where our GIS kind of shows either boundary discrepancy or encroachment. But those are civil matters. And our GIS isn't the end all. So I think this is the flags that are going out are the property owners getting their lines surveyed to see what they have to work with. I'll be reaching out to make sure ENS is installed. I didn't see any when I drove by this week. On to 644 English Neighborhood Road. This wasn't a matter that had come before the commission. We did receive, the office received a site plan showing delineated wetlands, but they were well outside of our area of jurisdiction. This is one of those Gilbert Kennison subdivision lots that came through at the end of 2022 that the commission approved the subdivision. I believe early 23. We also had there was a few lots that have come through. This particular lot had flagged wetlands, but the project area was outside of the jurisdiction. The neighbor feels like the hole that is dug for the septic isn't perking into the ground sufficiently, and they think it's a vernal pool. There wasn't a vernal pool depicted on the plan that I looked at in the building office. I didn't see any hydrophytic vegetation. The hole was dry when I looked at it today. I plan on reaching out to the contractor about that because there's a silt fence surrounding it that's kind of inadequately installed. And I advised the neighbor to ask the health district the questions about the perk test and the septic. But it's another one that I want to touch base with the contractor and see what's going on there. If this hole isn't draining, what's the deal and is there an issue? I don't know. I know that these holes not draining have come up before the commission before, and I wonder if anyone has any insight about how these were addressed in the past. Is this a wetlands matter, or is this a health department matter? If I don't have a vernal pool depicted on a site plan and the whole project is outside of the regulated area, do I contest the delineation?
Who did the delineation, Dan?
I'm gonna have to get back to you. I only saw the paper plan today in the building office.
Okay.
But I can scan that and send it to you.
Okay. It's
I
likely
think
that
it was
typically-
it was the delineation that came along with that Gilbert Kennison subdivision. I can find that with a couple minutes maybe.
well, we won't hold up the meeting for that, but
Sure.
typically, if it's a true vernal pool, it would still have some water in it at this point in time. Most vernal pools have wetland soils in part of them. They might flood over some of the non-wetland portions during very wet years, but they still should have some small amount of water in them, at least now, in order for the amphibians to survive. So if it is a vernal pool, it's probably not functionally, but whether or not it has wetland soils in it or not, don't know. Because typically they wouldn't have any vegetation in them at this time of the year because their water table changes, fluctuates so much. But so what it looks like is just looks like a mud hole.
Yeah.
As time goes on and as it dries out. And then ferns will start to develop. Sometimes it'll get covered with a grass covering as July and August come in for vernal pools. So they're kind of hard to tell. You have to be there at the springtime to see what's going on with them. But to see who was the soil scientist, who did the delineation, because that if there wasn't a delineation by a soil scientist, if there wasn't a statement on the plan stating who did it, then that would lead it to questionable and have to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll probably find that right after our meeting real quick and send it to you by email. It was a subdivision that had come through the commission.
Okay.
So I know I think have that floating around somewhere.
Well, it should be on the land records in any case.
Yep. And I don't know if anybody's got any questions. I wasn't able to prepare as much as I'd hoped. There's kind of a few figurative fires that have, presented themselves in the office, mostly on the zoning side. But if I'm missing anything, you guys don't remember it now, feel free to ask me in an email and I'll research it or try to get you an answer as soon as I can. And so we had one more item under administrative business. I broached at the end of the last meeting wetlands agent approvals. To expedite some of our caseload, some of the items that fall within the regulated area with no working directly in wetlands. We've had some really simple ones, and it's the commission's prerogative whether they would like to have a hand in the review process or would like me to handle these administratively and then report them back at the meeting. I think Bill asked that we put this on the agenda for discussion, and so I leave it to you guys.
So having been a wetlands agent in Thompson for a long time, approving wetlands agent approvals that did not come before the commission in advance, I was always reporting it would be put on the agenda under new application, or if I brought it to their attention beforehand under old applications. And then what I would state in the agenda, if I had issued it, I would give the date it was received, the date it was issued, whether or not the legal notice had been issued, if it had been issued, what the appeal period. There's a 14-day period by which anybody can appeal the wetlands agent's decision to the commission after the date of publication of the legal notice. So I would always report out, even if the appeal period had passed, that would still be on the agenda. The document would be put on the screen so the commission could see it, see what action I took. If they found a problem with what I did, then that would put me on notice as to in the future what to watch out for. Any application that I got that I thought was of significance, even though it was a wetlands agent approval, I would not take action on it. I would bring it before the commission and say, what is your position on this?
Sure.
For example, they just had it wasn't a subdivision, it was a condominium complex with, I believe, off of Route 193, but access came from Webster, not off of 193, and it had, I think it was 14 homes, individual homes, 4 duplexes, a stormwater management basin, and 2 discharges in the upland, all in the upland review. Some of the houses, only a couple of the houses were in the upland review, but there were like 4 septic systems in the upland review, but there was no actual work in wetlands itself. That's not one that I would automatically make a decision on myself. I would bring that, it's so complicated, I'd bring it to the commission. But something simple, like, you know, underground tank could have come through that way. You could have approved that, but if you felt uncomfortable about it because it's our first selectman that's involved in it, then bring it before the commission and then let the commission give you advice. I think that if there's a wetlands agent approval application that comes in, I don't think we have to make a motion to have you pass it, process it as a wetlands agent approval. If it comes in as a wetland agent approval application, then we could just say, go ahead and process it. Here's our concerns, take care of it. I don't think that it has to be moved upon us. However, there could be a wetlands agent approval application that comes in that we feel very concerned about and feel that we need to process it. And that then we would tell you that at that time.
I'm happy to bring anything that looks complex. Was that a subdivision in Thompson, or was that
No,
all-
it was a
that was
condominium
all-
complex.
okay.
Condominium
Yeah.
complex.
Anything with structures, drainage, any kind of serious earth moving, like even if it does qualify as a wetlands agent approval, I want you to, I need your expertise still for some of these more complex
Then I would just put
applications
it
that
on
we
the
might receive.
agenda and just solicit comment.
Sure.
You know, and I don't know how anybody else feels. Bill, you've talked to Janet Brooks on some of these issues. So if an application comes in as a wetlands agent approval, the commission doesn't have to file a motion to say, or pass a motion to say this can be processed as a wetlands agent approval if it was applied that way. However, if it wants to convert it to an individual permit, it probably should have a motion to say that it's taking it out of the hands of the agent and putting it before the commission.
Well, I haven't had any direct discussion on this particular matter.
Okay.
But I'd have to agree with everything. It's kind of a balance that we're just gonna have to work out. I mean, I had 3 basic things that are parameters that I was thinking to be concerned with. One, whether it could be wetlands agent approval, obviously, or not, would be work in wetlands or water course. Obviously, that would have to come to us. Work right next to a wetlands or water course. That's something we should still look at. And the agricultural exemptions is something that I would still want to look at, because not everything that can be included in the project qualifies for that exemption. So I would start with those.
Well,
3.
wetlands, that's not a wetlands agent approval. That requires the commission's action. Anything that's a use permitted as of right or a non-regulated use requires the commission
Yep.
to render the decision, not the agent. So it has to come
Okay,
before
I
us.
just wanted to make, I just wanted to make that point, that that's something that we should be looking at.
Hmm.
But I don't know that, I mean, I agree with all the things you said already, and, you know, it's tough to tell at every position, but I think we can try to work with Dan and find some way to give him some more authority and to, you know, ease the burden on everybody else. There are things that come up that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the things I'm noticing on the agenda, like today's agenda, it doesn't have a receipt date for when the application was received. And it doesn't say what kind of application it is, whether or not it's a wetlands agent approval application or an individual permit. And it makes a difference as to whether or not, if it's a wetlands agent approval, the receipt date is when it was received by the agent. But if it's an individual permit, it has to be received at the meeting, like the County Road Gravelly Brook application. What was the date that that application came in? And so today is, it's technically its legal receipt date. we need to have that in our records as to, you know, what the actual receipt date of particular applications are, so that we know we're not going over our timelines. And if it's a wetlands agent approval, we need to know that this is a wetlands agent approval application. And so that when a legal notice is published, we know what the 14-day appeal period is before it expires. We don't have that information in the agenda, and that should be in the agenda also.
Okay.
If you end up
So-
approving something before we see it.
Sure. Styled similarly to Thompson's agenda.
Yeah,
Okay. And on items for wetlands agent approval that I'd be reporting back, those included date received, date issued,
mhm.
legal
And they'd be on the
notice,
agenda.
yeah,
They'd be on the agenda.
and
So,
the end of the appeal.
yep, so when we look at the numbers, we see the sequential numbers. There shouldn't be a hole in any of the numbers. Meaning, you know, like 05, 24, 21, 05, 24, 22, 05, 24, 23, like you've got here. We can see what all the numbers are. There shouldn't be a hole in the numbering system. We should see them all.
Yeah, yeah. I'll include things I review as a wetlands agent in as we've been presenting this agenda. Also to include the date review, date issued, legal notice, appeal, and for anywhere it's pertinent, but date received for also the individual permits, subdivisions, uses permitted as of right.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, that's Mark or Stu, how do you feel?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah,
It's a lot. I think that you know, trying to get it organized and in a framework that is easier to understand than it is currently. We've got so many kind of, I don't know, I do anyway, not speaking for myself, but there are a lot of questions in my mind as to how to organize these. So it's not an immediate response, but it's just a process that's going to take some time. But I think that you're on the right track.
would you like
No,
to
and-
see the changes reflected in the next agenda? I guess you'd probably want to make a vote to grant that authority. We could do it as on a trial basis. I want the format of the agenda to be satisfactory to everybody. To see if it works. I think the way Marla and I had it in Thompson, it's pretty straightforward. It gives all the statutory information, and that is helpful when determining the timeline that we have to take for a review process. And it would keep the members apprised as to what's still possibly under an appeal period, and what has been authorized and past its appeal date. When it was noticed, those are just helpful things for anybody that's following any of these projects even. So I can incorporate them into our next agenda. And if you'd like me to start reviewing some of these simpler ones, I can report on them to the commission.
Well,
Sorry.
that sounds great. I guess one question I have is that a lot of these, you know, as they take several months to process, makes it more challenging. But if it can be easy, maybe categorically assigned in ways because over time, it's hard to keep track, that's all.
Well, in Thompson, we use call letters in front of the applications. I don't necessarily think you have to do it here. But so for example, jurisdictional rulings, they had a call letter of DEC. Wetlands agent approvals, application numbers had WAA in front of them. Subdivisions had SUB in front of them. And individual permits had IWA and then wetlands application for actual work in wetlands and watercourses. So we knew what type of application we were looking at by the call letter that was associated with the application.
That's big, yeah. I think that's very helpful.
I don't know if we've never had prefixes on our permit number.
No, you haven't.
Here. It should, I agree that it should be say, just reading off my agenda here and then inserting. Example 052419 Camp Road, map block lot. And then it should be dash wetlands agent approval. Chris
Mhm.
Lemery, Whole Forest Products. So the type of application I think should be addressed in its agenda bullet.
Mhm.
You okay, Mark?
Yep. I think maybe for the pending applications, on the agenda, you could have, date received. But for the new applications, we don't necessarily have to have the date received and stuff. That's just my opinion. Plus, we want to keep it all to one page if we can.
I'd like that very much. But
If
we
we start putting in too much information, then we're gonna run into page 2 of the agenda.
yeah.
Just my opinion.
No, I will I usually always try to be have all of the information on a one-page agenda. I don't want it to be too crammed in. So I'm gonna try to make that work. On a night like we have 8 applications, it might roll over to a page 2. But formatting is I'm pretty particular about formatting, and I hope to keep it onto one page. And I think we can. Even if it's some items are addressed in a subscript.
Mhm. Smaller print, finer print. Are you done, Dan?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm tired. But if there's any questions about anything, please reach out to me, and we'll work to get an answer.
Wish there were more hours in the day.
Oh, soon they're gonna figure out how to, put a little thing on our heads and make us do the brain work at night.
We need to find more commission members.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's becoming critical. So if I'm out of commission, I should still be able to conduct a Zoom meeting. I don't know how quickly I'll be able to go up and downstairs because I'm downstairs right now, using my PC and my laptop. But they said I can't drive for 3 weeks, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get up and downstairs for next month's meeting. I can zoom in, but I might not be able to be as efficient as I can because I might not be able to get down the stairs yet. We'll see. We'll see.
I don't think political party factors too heavily into who we can recruit, because I think we're both mostly unaffiliated.
Mhm.
I will raise this with Chandler Paquette. I spoke with Jay Swan heavily about this, but I'll talk with Chandler to let him know this is an issue, and that if he has any pull with anybody to try and arm twist somebody into joining our exciting commission.
If you could talk to Crystal
Yeah.
and maybe ask her to put an advertisement.
Yeah.
She can work that crystal magic. But we need to reach out to the public and then anybody else. I've spoken to a couple of people, but nobody really follows through.
Does the town ever have a booth at the fair?
I don't think so.
No.
Just I mean, there's got to be people. We could have a line if out the door with people interested if we could just reach the right people. So I'll work with Crystal to get inventive and do traditional advertising as well.
See if there's any teachers at the academy that might have an interest.
That's a good one.
Science teacher. That, yeah, it's a possibility, but they usually work outside of town.
You mean live outside of town?
Live outside of town, sorry.
Well, we'll try a few approaches. I'd like to see us at our maximum roster size, and that gives everybody a degree of flexibility.
And we have to remember, Mark, you said that you were planning on not being reappointed in December.
Yeah.
So
I'm not gonna leave the commission if they can't find anybody. Let's put it that way.
understand.
But
Understand.
I don't want the town to be out of compliance with having enough members. But I would like somebody to step forward. To join the commission.
Well, that's gonna be a big void if you take off, because we need at least a couple of years of apprenticeship to fill your
Oh,
seat.
yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, we can get somebody in the next year. I'll stay on another year just to.
Maybe
get on
Mr.
board,
Maybe Mr. Patriot would be interested. He must have learned an awful lot about wetlands and water courses in the course of his problems.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Well, we could try reverse psychology with him and say, we don't want you to come on board. See how that works.
Yep.
I'm gonna be okay with where we are with your discussion. I just want to bring up one thing from the last meeting.
Right.
One of the answers you had is a wetlands delineation required in zoning regulations. And the answer was Article 5, whatever, of the zoning regulations regarding zoning permits states that the ZEO or PZC may require locations of all wetlands and water courses, and whether field located by a soil scientist or derived from USDA soil surveys. So is that something that we might want to tighten up on that and suggest a change to the zoning regulations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who receives those requests?
I'd probably be forwarding it direct to Delia Fay.
Okay.
I could also. I think they're working on a batch of ideas of proposed changes. I know they're also probably more focused on the plan of conservation and development, which is I think a update is due next year. But I think the wetlands, the Planning and Zoning Commission is particular about their application process and wouldn't mind having that be a requirement.
I would like to see it there, and I'd like to see it only by a soil scientist, because the maps and soil surveys may not be accurate enough.
Okay. So we're not typically going to see a delineation for a small project like a shed. A lot of times, for the basic things, basic structures such as a pool or a deck, we get a markup of a site plan or a markup of GIS. What scope of what type of applications should that
New
be
home.
required? New
New
home?
home construction, subdivisions, new roadways. Any kind of commercial building construction.
Yep.
I mean, we could keep this in continuous discussion for a few months. So we don't have to nail it all down now, but
Yeah.
just to get the
Sure.
Yeah.
ball rolling on it.
I'll add this to our next agenda for a wider discussion, and I'll give the excerpt of the zoning regulations to members so they can see what is written, and then maybe come up with a phrase to supply the Planning and Zoning Commission with
Well,
that.
So how about when they need a site plan approval? Which is
Okay.
not a simple zoning. If you need a site plan approval, a subdivision approval, or a special permit, any one of those three should have the wetlands delineated on them. Because a new home would need a site plan approval, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that's what I would do is make sure that the zoning regs say that if you need a site plan approval, a special permit, that you need to have the wetlands delineated by a qualified soil scientist. That would be easy to add in. Then that leaves out that other stuff like a shed and stuff like that. That's not necessarily needing a site plan approval. Those are simple zoning permits. But then you want to look at subdivision regulations to see if they have a requirement in subdivision regs, because anytime, see, special permits, site plan approvals, and subdivisions, they are required by statute. If there are any wetlands or watercourses on the property, they must submit an application to the Inland Wetlands Commission the same time they submit their application to planning and zoning. So it would make sense to have those delineations consistent with the inland wetlands regulations, which is have them delineated by a qualified soil scientist.
Yeah, I'll check how it's phrased in both documents and share the excerpt of both documents with the commission. I'm sorry, I've been saying the commission this tonight. It's the agency. Oh.
I know what you mean.
As of right.
Yeah, as of right. On a related subject, is the zoning commission gonna be putting together a committee on rewriting or updating the plan of conservation and development? And if so, I think there's some sections in there that we'll wanna, as a wetlands commission, kind of take a look at and just give our input on if anything needs to be revised or updated.
As a wetlands agency.
Yeah.
PCC meets this Thursday, and I will raise that question and let them know also that the commission is interested in working on well, Mark, was there anything in particular or that you just would like to have a hand in the final product?
No, I was just wondering if they were gonna have like public comment or, ask for the other agencies to chip in on.
Okay.
Because I know there are portions of the POCD that are pretty that are related to water courses and wetlands and so forth. So, yeah.
I'll ask the Planning and Zoning Commission about their intentions with the POCD updates and their timeline, and if where we can participate where we can, and what that process will be to
Right.
formally update them. I'm pretty sure there's a vote. Oh, it's been a little while, but I feel like there's a public comment period and maybe a public hearing related to
Yeah.
that. But I will find out those procedural steps and report them back to the Wetlands Agency.
Thanks.
And I've covered, I think, all I've got. If anybody has any other questions.
Okay, moving on to citizens' comments, which I don't
No
believe we
citizens.
don't have any citizens to comment. We had Tina for quite a while, but. All right, I would
Okay.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Marla Butt, seconded by Stuart Peasley to adjourn at 9:19 PM. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, especially Marla, for your last minute jumping in and
I'm sorry. I apologize for keeping guys waiting. I totally forgot.
No
Thanks for
problem.
calling.
I've done it before myself.
And when you were the chair.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Have a good night,
Right.
everybody.
Take
Good night,
care.
everybody. Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you, Dottie.